you're making too much noise. The fish won't bite.
Oh, Grandpa, they must not like our wines because they're not tasting anybody's. She's right this time, Grandpa. No, Grandpa. Why don't you tell us one of your own Choctaw stories? I kind of like to hear them. Yeah, tell us how the Grandma loves to tell. No, I want to hear about the legend of Naniwaya.
Well, I'll have to confess, it don't look like we're going to catch any fish here. All right, I'll tell you the story. A long time ago, in the dream time, the Choctaw ancestors lived in a far distant land where they were oppressed by much stronger people. So they came together in a general council and they decided that they had to move. But they couldn't decide which way to go. So they set up a pole in the middle of their camp. They decided that the way that pole leaned, which way they would go. And that darn pole stood there for 3 days. Didn't move. But on the morning of the 4th, when they woke up, the pole was leaning far to the east. And so, they gathered up all their young'uns and the bones of their ancestors, which was their custom. And they loaded up their dogs. Why didn't they load their horses? They didn't have any horses. They loaded up their dogs and they lit out for the east. And each night they set the pole in the middle of their camp. And each morning it was leaning far to the east. And this went on day after day, and week after week, and month after month. Then one morning, the pole was standing upright. And they said, this must be the sign, this must be the place that will be our new home. So they sent out runners to spy out the land, and on the 4th day they came back. And they said, this is truly a good land, this is the place, this should be our new home. So to celebrate, they built a great mound. And in memory of the pole, they caused it to sort of lean toward the east. And they called it Naniwaya, the leaning mound.
But don't we have a place called Naniwaya in the Choctaw Nation now?
Oh yes, but the original Naniwaya was located in Winston County, Mississippi. The one we now call Naniwaya is the place where the Choctaws built their council house when they came to, the first council house when they came to Oklahoma. You see, I believe that was built down near Tuscaloosa.
I want to hear about when Tuscaloosa was cheap and when Sutter brought the horses and we had a big fight.
Oh, Tubby, that happened a long time ago. In the year of 1540. Old DeSoto was driving a Chrysler. Yeah, he just come right up the road there. No, really. He came up leading his Spaniards. They were riding great horses. They were riding great horses and wearing armor, and they carried guns. The Choctaws had never seen horses. They'd never seen armor, and they certainly had never seen guns. Can you imagine what people said? They said, they have a funny-looking stick, and they point it, and it sounds like thunder, and smoke comes out the end, and where they point it, the thing falls down, and it's all covered in blood. And they looked at the horse, and they said, that's a great dog. And the people were afraid.
And old Tuscaloosa showed him, didn't he? Didn't he ride one of the horses? boss from every village. He demanded the Choctaws get first class in every village. To make Tuscaloosa just a fancy road and run on one of their horses. They went to village to village giving supplies.
Do you also remember that Tuscaloosa secretly sent runners to all the villages in his district, warning the warriors to meet him at Mobila, a place we now call Mobile, Alabama?
And they beat up those Spaniards to steal their food stuff, didn't they?
Well, not exactly. You see, raw Choctaw courage was no match for those Spanish guns. And those stone-tipped arrows wouldn't penetrate the steel armor. But they found that those stone-tipped arrows would penetrate the horses. And when they killed a horse, they rushed the rider and cut his throat. Come on, fall over, do something. Yeah, he died. He knew that he was going to be killed. See, when they put him on that horse, among all those armed Spaniards, he knew that if anything happened, he was going to be the first man to be killed. But knowing this, he felt that he had to do what he had to do. And for his great courage, the Choctaws still remember him and honor him. And back after the Civil War, when they built the Academy for Freedmen down near Tallahassee, they named it the Tuscaloosa Colored Academy. In his honor. Nah. No, scoot over. I gotta get up against him to see here. No, he wasn't the greatest chief. He was very brave. But he was not as wise as he could have been. Most people think that there were three great chiefs. Moslatabi, Apakshinari, and the great Pushmatar. The great Pushmatar.
Grandpa Hancock is dreaming about the early Choctaw, how they had lived in harmony with their French and white neighbors for many years. They had assisted General Washington in the Revolutionary War. But, beginning with the Treaty of Hopewell in 1786, they were being forced to give up land and establish boundaries that weren't necessary before. The English-speaking white man wanted land to build homes and farms. At first, there was plenty of land. But after giving up land in 5 different treaties, some of the Choctaws were beginning to get disturbed. Tecumseh, the Shawnee chief, has called his Choctaw brothers to a council in order to get their help to fight the white man.
Brothers, it is a matter of great importance that we have met together here tonight and solemn council to debate whether, not to debate whether we've been wronged or injured, but by what measure we should avenge ourselves. Look over this once beautiful land and what do you see? Nothing but the ravages of the pale-faced destroyers meet your eye.
Pull out a jigsaw.
Soon the mighty trees that you played in boyhood will be cut down to fence in the land which the white destroyers dare to call their own. Your people will soon be as fallen leaves and scattered clouds, driven from their ancient land. The graves of your fathers will be plowed up and turned into fields. Their broad roads will blot out the resting place.
No.
Let us form one body. One heart. And defend to the last warrior. Our homes, our liberty, and the graves of our fathers.
This man speaks the truth. The American farmers are getting too close to our native land.
The American traders have supplies that we need. They buy the goods that we wish to sell. We need to think about these things.
I agree with Brother Shawnee.
Yes, but we have this nice people fighting like this.
No. Listen to me, my brother. The Choctaw people are going to have to do something. The white men are taking our land. Let us follow our great leader, Chahta.
We have not before been at war with the Americans. We have been at peace all these years. I do not advise you to argue against the accusations of Tecumseh, but I would ask you to think about the rash and dangerous decisions you're about to make.
Yes.
I stand before you not to argue against the accusations that we have against the white man, or to raise my voice in useless accusations. Right now, the thing before us is not what wrongs have been inflicted upon our race, but what measures we should take in regards to those things.
We follow you.
And though you may have been shamefully wronged and unjustly treated, I would not for that reason ask you to forgive them. A war against a people whose territories are now far greater than our own, and who are far better provided with the implements of war, with men and guns and horses and wealth. Where is the necessity or the wisdom to have a war with such a people? It would be but the beginning of the end that terminates in the complete destruction of our whole race. I am not so insensible or inconsistent as to advise you to yield cowardly to the outrages of the whites, or to raise your voice to the great white father in Washington. Lay upon him our grievances. Reflect, ere it be too late, on the outcome of such a war. Consider what the results would be.
Yes.
Listen to me, my brothers. Do as you may, know this truth. I will join the Americans in this war.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Something. You must be or we'll put you to death. They go and get to working with us. That's what you're going to Choctaw River and the Creek Country.
I will go and tell George Gaines of our village that we are ready to join his people in this fight against the Creeks.
Yes.
Yeah, you did it. You are good. Push Choctaw sure gave good speeches, didn't he?
He sure did. They say some of his speeches lasted for 3 days.
What happened after they made Tecumseh leave? Did he fight with the Americans?
He warned the Choctaws that if any of them followed Tecumseh and were not killed in battle, they'd be killed as traitors when they returned home. You see, he didn't want Choctaws fighting Choctaws, and he wanted to lead a united Choctaw nation. He went to see George Gaines at St. Stephen's.
If the Creeks continue to make war against your people, we are ready to help you in your fight against them.
Well, I am not a war chief, therefore I cannot accept your services. But I will send word to one that is a war chief.
There are 3 reasons why we want to help you in this war. The first reason is our people along the Tombigbee River are in danger. And second, many of our people were murdered at the massacre at Fort Mims. But third, and probably the most important reason, is our young warriors are getting very excited about the prospects of war, and they want to join one side or the other. And I want to make sure they join the right side, the side of the United States.
Well, I'm sure that General Jackson can accept your services.
I will call the General Council, and we will discuss it.
Abukshanubby and Moshilatubbee were there, as well as several thousand Choctaws. They brought their families and camped. When Pushmataw and his wife came up, all eyes turned toward him. He was very calm. He lay down in the shade of a tree, and his wife visited with the other women.
The council will decide. They say, well, listen to my husband. I understand that our young warriors are becoming restless with this war going on around us. Our council is blind. They are do what it is. Not for this. Many of our people are free. The loss of our freedom is so against by the Creeks. They will vote for revenge.
Many years ago, I went to see President Washington. He rarely opened his mouth without saying something of great importance for all of mankind, and especially his great children.
Yes, sir.
He advised us long ago not to engage in war. He advised us to remain at home, and that if there was any battles to be fought, he could take care of it himself.
Amen.
But what man or what warrior can sit idly by and watch his people and friends being butchered? I cannot stand by and see this happen. I would ask you to listen to my voice.
Yes.
I will not want you to stay at home and do nothing about this.
Yes.
I am a warrior. I am Choctaw. Even though you may want to take the advice of the White Father, most of you will want to join me in this battle. If you do, I will lead you into victory and to glory.
Almost every man and boy sprang to his feet shouting, "I too am a warrior and will follow Pushmataha." When General Jackson learned the Choctaws were ready to fight, this pleased him. He knew he would need their method of fighting against the Creeks. Pushmataha's Choctaw Regiment served under General Claiborne. Now, since the chief had the bearing and dignity of a general, he was presented a Brigadier General's uniform by Claiborne. The Choctaws were excellent fighters, slow to be aroused, but hard to stop after they were once on the warpath. They took part in the Battle of New Orleans. They were a part of the raw troops that Jackson made into an army strong enough to defeat the British. Now, after the war, the returning warriors told their stories about their part in the Creek Wars and the War of 1812. Pushmataha was the hero of every battlefield. The great chief and his warriors had engaged in 24 battles, all for the United States. Settled down to a very domesticated life. They invited missionaries to come into their country and establish schools. They were planting cotton, spinning, and weaving cloth, doing blacksmith work, and using agricultural implements. General Pushmataha and his Choctaw warriors had helped to make Mississippi and the Southwest safe for American settlers, but not for the Choctaws. They, like all other Southern Indians, were caught in the path of the irresistible westward movement. In April 1819, General Jackson was appointed along with Colonel John McKee and Colonel Daniel Burnett to treat with the Choctaws. Government officials believed only Jackson could obtain a treaty. They knew the Choctaws had confidence and faith in him, and Pushmataha considered him his true friend. So, Pushmataha agreed to meet in council with a wise friend like Jackson, who would do what was best for the Choctaw.
The council has been called at the request of the President of the United States. He wants to make a trade with you. The government wants to trade the land west of the Mississippi River for that land you now own east of the Mississippi River. This trade will benefit both the Choctaws and the whites. It will help the President accommodate. It will protect you by giving you a new country, better hunting ground. It will be a land of many rivers, tall trees, rich land with high grass and game of all kinds. It will be like your happy hunting ground. This extensive rich territory is offered in exchange for that little strip of land in the lower part of the present Choctaw Nation. is a much larger territory than all your present possessions, and certainly a very liberal proposition.
No.
What has the chief of Choctaw to say about this great offer?
I am not capable of matching wits with you, General Jackson. You, Generals Jackson, General Hines, were appointed by your government to make a treaty with the Choctaws. Am I right?
Yes.
I, too, was appointed by my government. And I have served under you both during the Creek War. But there is no need to misrepresent the land that is involved.
But you have accused me of misrepresenting this new country, and indirectly with a desire to defraud the Choctaw people. These are serious charges. Explain yourself in a manner that is satisfactory, or I shall quit you.
I shall be happy to explain my statement. I have been to the land west of the Mississippi many times.
Yes.
It is not as rich and vast as you would say. And our land is much more than your description would indicate.
I took them out.
Your description has proven that you are completely ignorant of the land you're about to swap. And there are white settlers on the eastern part of that land. Do the commissioners have the authority to swap those American citizens?
I'll send my warriors, and for the eternal I will make them move or drive them into the Mississippi River.
Very well.
Functionary, what have you to say?
I have nothing to say at this time. My warriors are ready to play ball.
This was the Treaty of Doak Stand. Apache had been blackmailed into voting for the agreement. His granddaughter had married a deserter of the United States, and his life was threatened. Jackson had given his word. The United States had promised to each of those who would go to the new country a good rifle, bullet mold, camp kettle, 1 blanket, powder and lead, and corn to last 1 year. 3 years later, the Choctaws had not moved. The United States realized they had made a mistake on the boundaries, and the settlers in the Arkansas Territory did not want to move as Jackson had promised. They asked the Choctaws for another general council to make another treaty. The 3 great chiefs, now old, knew that each time they treated with the white men, they gave up more and more of their land. They decided not to call a council, but to go see the Great White Father in Washington. Years ago, the Great White Father had promised that he would always keep his red children under his arm and listen to their problems. Needless to say, they stayed for several months and were never received by the president. Apache died en route to Washington, and Pushmataha died there. Pushmataha, the distinguished chief of the Choctaw Nation, was buried in the old congressional cemetery with the honors of war corresponding to the rank of Major General. The idea of Indian removal began with President Thomas Jefferson in 1803. But there was no results until the election of Andrew Jackson as president. Then the man who had been called the Great Chief, Chief of the White Men, and also the man who had called the Great Chief Pushmataha, Brother Push, favored ownership of Indian lands by the southern settlers. On December 27, 1830, the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek was signed, and the forced removal of the Choctaw people began.
We've given up our land piece by piece with each treaty the government made. We've lost 2 great chiefs, and at the last council meeting at Dancing Rabbit Creek, we agreed to leave our homes and move to a land far away.
Our ancestors traveled many miles long ago when they came to this land. Their bones are in the hills around us. The misfortunes of our people causes my heart to grieve.
But the journey's going to be hard, and the children, and the old ones, they may not survive.
We will just pray to the great ones for strength not to fear death, for death is only a great step in the circle of life.
children. So let's not have any more of this sad stories. Come, my children. I want to tell you a story. A story about the rabbit and the squirrel. Now, did you know that our people were living down there, their old home place, and they were traveling to their new nether wonderland. So therefore, there was a squirrel and a rabbit there, and they wanted to go, and they kept hearing them talk about it. But you know what? They finally decided they didn't know whether to go or not. So they got together and they got to talking. It was cold, it was raining, the weather was bad. So they decided, well, we're going to go to our place. We're going to go and we're going to travel there. So they went across the road. They sat on a log. It rained, it hailed, it sleeted, and the water all froze. And there sat the rabbit and the turtle. And you know they both had tails and eyes. And they were such good friends. They would often sit there and talk. And the squirrel says, well, I'm going. So he starts out and says, come on, rabbit, let's go. And you know, the rabbit sat there and sat there and couldn't move. The squirrel turned around and said, come on, rabbit, we're going now. We've got to go while folks are traveling and we've got to go. The rabbit kept on. Finally, and you know what, his tail went off in that house. And he chased him on back across that, on that tree, with the squirrel.
The old one is right. What has been decided will not be changed. We must rely on strength from our God. The missionary Tally has said he will go with us on this.
Please, speak to me, Oklahoma.
I have no words that can express my feelings at this moment.
But you do love me, don't you? Just let me hear those words.
Oh, Nasha Bushy, my heart is entwined with yours. This is the vines in our forest. But I cry inside, knowing that you will stay here in Mississippi with your grandfather, and I must go with my family to this new country.
But you do understand, he is not strong enough for the journey. And the government, they have said that we can stay here. It is a decision of necessity, not choice. For if it were possible, I would not ever leave your side.
I know the cause, but I cannot understand why my family has to leave this land. The land of my birth, and my mother, and her mother.
Don't we? One day, God will allow us to be together again.
marred by misery and suffering, particularly because that region experienced the worst blizzard in its history. The cold and severe weather caused much sickness and death. Finally, at the beginning of March 1832, 5 months after they had left Mississippi, the first stage of the removal was complete, with 3,749 sick, tired, discouraged Choctaws in their new home. The second removal was about the same, but they faced a cholera epidemic. Sometimes they waded swamps waist deep and traveled through dense forests. The third removal was completed in 1834. Whether they traveled by land or steamboat, they endured the same hardships, hunger, disease, and bitter cold. They also suffered at the hands of white men along the way. They had paid for meat to be provided. Many times it was left on the side of the river or on the roadside and was spoiled or rotten. They found bridges burned so that they would have to wade water waist deep or stay camped close to a town and purchase supplies at enormous prices. Many times you could hear their sad voices singing woeful songs as they journeyed.
Well, when they first came to Oklahoma, of course they were very sad and despondent. They had left everything that they had worked a lifetime for, and they left their homes. They left everything. And many of them had family members and friends that had died on the way. However, this was a new land. It was wide open. There were no roads. There was nothing. They had to do something immediately. They couldn't wait. There was no time to be sad. The first thing they had to do was to build some sort of shelter. Remember, there was nothing. There's just trees and animals, and that's it. So they had to build their homes and clear the fields and get the crops in. And then they began to develop their society. By 1834, when at the end of the third removal, they did a wonderful, marvelous thing. They wrote a constitution. That is particularly remarkable, considering that half the world still doesn't have a written constitution. That constitution included a 27-member general council. And they divided the country into 3 districts with chiefs. And those 3 chiefs, or 2 of those chiefs, if they voted together, those district chiefs, they could nullify the acts of the general council. By 1838, the Constitution was completed and in operation, and they had a new council house down at Choctaw. What do they call that council house?
You tell us they named it Mariawaya, meant it's a separate mountain, Mississippi.
There you go.
Did they get their farms and school started again? I heard that they was really doing good. Then the Civil War started. For the very first time, Choctaw was in the United States.
Yeah, that's about the way it was. Keep in mind that they had developed the most remarkable civilization here, a society unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. It was made up of a very tight, almost like a family. They had no jails. For about 30 years they had no jails. And no citizen of the nation was ever taxed. You wouldn't find that today. But as the Civil War wore on, although they had assured the government that they would remain neutral, the regional influence and the efforts of men like Albert Pike, the Indian Commissioner, dragged them into the war. They didn't really do a whole lot of fighting. They were involved in some little skirmishes up in Missouri and in Arkansas. And some of the country was torn up, but nothing like it was in many places in the South, where Atlanta was burned and the Shenandoah Valley was completely destroyed. They lost some farms, they lost some schools, but basically they came out of it a complete society. And Reconstruction, although it was harsh, very harsh, and the Civil War was unbelievably terrible, for the Choctaws, it was relatively less so than for many other places. The result was that the Choctaws continued on with their society. They built it stronger and better, and they prospered, and they multiplied, and they improved upon the...
Then history began to repeat itself. With the coming of the railroads, stage routes, and the coal mining, there came more white men. The Choctaw Nation was becoming more crowded, and the settlers demanded more land. It was becoming evident that the freedom and self-government that they had experienced since removal 75 years ago was now coming to an end. Legislation was passed in the Congress of the United States to do away with the Indian titles to land and to dissolve the tribal governments. The Dawes Commission was formed in 1893 to enroll the Indians. They began their work in 1897, but many Choctaws and Chickasaws wanted to sell all their country and buy land in Mexico. A party even visited Mexico to buy land in Mexico. A party even visited Mexico during the winter of 1897, 1898 to look at the land. This project was never completed. With the signing of the Atoka Agreement of 1897, the Indian lands were allotted and the push for statehood began. The Choctaws petitioned Congress and President Roosevelt, stating that previous treaties had guaranteed that they should never be included within the territory of any state. They joined with their other Indian leaders to draft a constitution and to try to form their own state. But Congress would not accept the idea of a separate Indian state. So, in 1907, Indian Territory became a part of the state of Oklahoma. The story of the Choctaw is one of courage. It was evident in the first journey to Neolaya and has continued throughout their history. A prime example of this great courage are the Choctaws who served in World War I. It had been just a few years earlier since they had been forced to join the state of Oklahoma and a part of the United States. But, as before mentioned, they had always been loyal to the United States, with the exception of the Civil War. So they answered the call of their country and joined in the fight against the Germans. Now, we are proud of all who fought, but we'll take time to recognize a few. One of these is Joseph Oklahombi, who is the war's most decorated soldier. The first code talkers were 8 Choctaw men in the 142nd Infantry of the 36th Division who used their native language to confuse the German army, who could never decipher the code of the Choctaws. Their help was very instrumental in World War I. The first Choctaws involved were Solomon Lewis, Mitchell Bob, Ben Kitobi, Jeff Nelson, Pete Maytubby, James Edwards, Calvin Wilson, Robert Taylor. All of these men from the heart of Choctaw country. We would like to recognize tonight the remaining Choctaw code talker, Schliss Billy, Pittsburgh County, Choctaw Nation. They are proud to say, I am Choctaw.
This is the cast that just produced a play that's been shown and played here in the Choctaw Nation for the first time. And I'm honored and I'm thrilled, and I want you to show them how proud of them you are. Australia was a research and photographer. Our friend Lynn Israel. Cheryl Cummings is a co-producer. We just want to show our token of appreciation, and at this time I'll ask Greg. Oh, okay, back and set it right. Who's going to set it right? Okay, Greg, if you can get them a flower. Rocky Purdom is not with us this evening. I think his wife is out in the audience. We want to thank Rocky.
He was here just a minute. He was here, he's one of two.
Oh, okay.